Speaking of reliability, a podcast with good friends talking with you about reliability engineering topics. Welcome to Speaking of Reliability. This is Fred Schenkelberg.
And this is Kirk Gray.
And Kirk and I are just chatting about a career progression type stuff. And we were talking about, and I asked Kirk, and he answered yes right away. And I said, and I said, wait, stop. Let's hit record before you go on this. So the question was, so this past couple of years, part of it is pandemic, part of it is working from home, part of it is, there's all kinds of forces at play. But over the last year or 2 years, there's been a record number of people that said, all right, I'm leaving this company. I'm going to go work somewhere else. Now, there's a tight labor market. There's plenty of jobs available. Right. People could move because they want to be closer to home or family or part of the world they want to be in. Or they are tired of their boss and there's opportunities to go someplace else that might be better aligned with their career or whatever. But is it a strategy that a reliability engineer who's dependable and trustworthy and is, always doing very reliable type person, shows up all the time for the meetings, gets stuff done, makes your products better. Should they go to a different company every year or 2 years, or a different job every year or 2 years, even if it's within one company? Or is it better to stay and hold and create a legacy, basically, or craft, because it takes time to change the culture of an organization to be more or less durable or reliable, whatever, to get engineering started. What's the trade-off here? Yeah,
I think the pandemic for sure has kind of tossed the whole idea of work-life balance and work and, what you want to do in your career up in the air. And so it's really kind of made people rethink the whole thing. But my experience has been, and I think you as a consultant, and as we've, evolved to working with a lot of industries, in different industries, we learn so much from each one. Yep. Like I've worked with oil, gas drilling equipment. It was just a different world, and then going from, Dell computers, to
you were in semiconductor repairs.
I actually was in chips. So I actually went with the flow of the electronic assembly process from actually making with ion implanters and thin film deposition equipment. High vacuum equipment is where I started in the 70s and 80s, and then eventually moved on to circuit boards and system process.
Then you tried to bury him 5 miles under the ground in oil and gas and drilling operations.
I found, talk about extreme conditions. That stuff is amazing that it operates at 175 C.
Yeah, and 50,000 G shocks continuously.
And you don't know this stuff until you get into those industries and you realize how robust semiconductors can be, how tough electronics can be. Yeah, unless you also do what I did, is put a computer motherboard into the chamber, and he ran it at 130 C with the CPU cooling block on it. But other than that, you find out you only discover these things. So you discover a lot, and talk about being exposed to a lot of different attitudes too. I think when you work, and you can do this in a company, like when I was with Storage Tech, I went from thin film deposition of tape heads, what were called sliders. I don't know if they have that anymore, but the mechanical device that picked up the signal from the disk. That was mostly a semiconductor process. So I went from there, and then inside the same company, Storage Technology, from making those heads to the assembly of circuit boards and the systems testing, the whole system. And that's where also I learned and met Dr. Greg Hobbs, who taught me about Halt and Haas, was my mentor there. Yeah. But that's where, if I'd stayed with one company like I don't even know. I'd get bored. I guess I get really bored with it.
Well, if you were still with Storage Tech, though, and
Existed, yeah.
and made it a career, right? In one company, you'd probably be a senior manager of reliability or quality or both, and shaping the culture of the place. In a 20, 30-year career, you probably have a tremendous impact. Depends on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish, and the culture around you. If they're switching CEOs every 6 weeks, and you get all, and it's, if the focus is always on cost reduction and go away, you do the reliability over there. Do you want to take on that challenge and help change the culture or create a change like that? Or do you see hope for it going forward? But that's just one of many, many considerations that go into it. But I agree with you, Kirk, wholeheartedly, is that I had the opportunity, and it was when I was at HP, is to do an assessment of reliability programs in our 50 different product lines. So in a span of about a year and a half, I learned so much, and you summarized it well. And it became very, very clear that the presence of a reliability engineer is not as important as the approach or philosophy of that reliability in that organization. Some organizations had absolutely amazing reliability performance of their products, very cost-effective design practices that built in reliability, and there wasn't a reliability engineer in sight. The team got it, right? They just did it, and vice versa. I've seen teams like at companies that have a whole room full of reliability engineers, and they're not worth the paper they're sitting on. To turn a phrase.
I just reminds me of this. I just had to shake my head when Storage Technology assembled a group of engineers from all parts of the company to respond or to answer the question, why were their predictions not correlating with the actual field failure rates? I got $100, American Express gift certificate out of it, but we had, there was this taking 217 and adding these obscure design maturity facts, they were pulling it out of their ass.
Yeah, it was a random number generator with random number generators on top of it. It was like,
and nobody would sit there and say, what are you basing your predictions on? What physical mechanisms? What history? What data? What
Well, you mentioned the slider kind of thing is this, and they had a client. It was a storage device of some sort, but it was on tape. Tape, and this is, I guess, date me a bit. And it was Dell was the major purchaser coming in, big purchase coming in, and their purchasing agent required a parts count prediction.
Oh man.
Yeah, it is your fault. I know it was your fault. You'd been there.
Right.
And so they might have been before that. But anyway, they said, we don't do that. It's worthless. We know that what's going to wear out in this thing is the glass frit that this tape rides on so that it has the right spacing, and every foot causes this many microns to be worn away, so many thousands of feet or however many travel
like
time.
We know an automobile tire wears out, there's friction and
how many miles, how many times is that? You can measure this stuff.
Although it varies with the tape manufacturer too, and the grain size and a lot of other things.
But they knew this. They knew it and said, this is what's going to wear out. All the other stuff, solid state, is you might have 1 in a million issues here and there, but this will limit the life of your product by far of anything else. And here's the equation, here's the test data, here's all the science behind it and everything else. And they said, no, that's all fine. You understand what the reliability is, but I need reliability like from 217.
Right.
And
this stays forever.
Yeah. But anyway, in the
that's
podcast,
that's why I say to be a good reliability engineer requires you to kind of investigate and see a lot of different mechanisms. If you're just with the same device and the same system, you're not going to be one to go out and see, like I did with semiconductor manufacturing equipment on up to circuit boards and systems, and understand the big picture and also what are the more common things that actually cause failure in the field.
Well, I think I think you can still do that within one company, one
You
product
can't.
line. And it's up to the individual for curiosity and following down the details of things. And I mean,
Right.
every product we ever worked with continue to evolve and change. And we have new materials, new assembly processes. But even going just to the vendors, right, and being included on the vendor selection stuff. In many organizations, that would be a culture change right from the start. Instead of being only called in when there's a major quality or reliability problem, is design it in right from the vendor's start, kind of thing. You can learn a lot from these different vendors and the way
sure.
they go about doing stuff.
Right.
There's tons of stuff there, but the strategy is do you create that exposure to different technologies and different atmospheres and different cultures around reliability
Right.
within a
Very
company
much so.
or by moving around?
Right. If you can do that, right. If you're able to do that, that's helps. I mean, it's difficult changing jobs, especially when you have a family or you have financial responsibilities and things like that, to just go out and say, I'm going to quit and go to another company. But with a lot of experienced engineers, they can, get offers and go. Of course, also, I don't want to move anymore. That's another problem is relocating.
You really should get out of that chair more often, Kirk.
Yeah, I know. But when I was young, I did. I went and lived in New York when I sold semiconductor equipment. So that's the time to do it, is invest your time. And I don't think you're going to, I think you would agree that you'll be a better consultant if you've seen more different industries, although you might be a specialist in one. And one of the things that, I think has really changed in the whole, since the pandemic and the work life is the politics of the office. And that's always something you're going to have to deal with, no matter where you work, is who's in favor with what manager,
who's the influencers, who's the
exactly,
who's the linchpin type people,
who's what do they call it, rate, and the rating system where they used to call it where they cut off the bottom 20% of people.
Forced ranking,
forced ranking systems, things like that. So you had to spend a lot of time either promoting yourself or something like that. I wasn't that great at that, and I was trying to make more demonstrations, but they usually came too late of what a higher level of testing, of stressing things to a higher level, what you could find and identifying problems. And so anyway, but getting to the right people, having the right contacts, and that's a big part of, climbing the company ladder or whatever, if you want to do that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really changed from our generation, Kirk, to our previous generations is that having 2 or 3 jobs in for me growing up, having 3, 4 different jobs, and even if different industry,
right,
is considered okay, right? Yeah. And I remember when I was a young engineer, there was one guy that was there for like 6 months, and he went to another company, and he went to another company, and then he tried getting hired back. And they said, why do we want to invest in you when you've got this hop job every year kind of thing? And sometimes somebody with that experience then got hired back, and they ended up getting promoted, by not being there. But they went and got a bunch of experience, and they could demonstrate the value they could do and provide and so on. But if your career looking for experiences or looking for the right cultural fit for you and your lifestyle or your job, there's so many different reasons to go into it. But what's changed dramatically is that people that have had, it's okay for them to say, it wasn't a good fit for me, so I left for a better opportunity, or I did what I could do there, and it wasn't really a challenge left for me. I want to challenge myself, and I left.
Right.
And so if I leave a job after a year or 2 years, it's not necessarily seen as a bad thing anymore.
No, you're
right.
Back in especially my parents' generation, when I first got laid off, they said, well, what did you do wrong? You must have done something serious, like it was for cause. They didn't realize how weak the bonds between the employer and employee came. And they would drop you in a heartbeat if they had a bad
numbers.
Financial year. Yeah. So that became the norm. And then, of course, my older brother got laid off from law position, and then my parents realized, well, the world has changed. That
Yep.
it doesn't mean anything. And when I got resumes in, it wouldn't be surprising me. Of course, nowadays it wouldn't be surprised to see 20 jobs
Yep.
in a 10-year.
Well, out here in Silicon Valley, there's I've been on
Right.
15
You walk
different
across the
startups,
street.
and they all didn't pan out. But this one looks promising, so I still own my stock on that one. But I'm looking for another challenge.
Exactly.
Great.
So nowadays, you're right. The implications of people changing jobs is not as bad, and I think in some cases, if it's not because they were unpleasant to work with, or,
Yeah.
fired for cause, I think it's certainly they have an advantage in having seen other failures in other companies and things like that. They can't discuss it. They've signed an NDA. They can't really bring.
But they know to say, hey, this material set here does
Right.
galvanic corrosion. We got to look into that.
Mhm.
That
Right.
you can know the failure mechanism level.
Right.
You're good. Or you could say, let's not buy from that vendor. I happen to suspect they're really bad.
You just had a disaster with them. The last company you were with.
That's right.
Right. So that experience is something that I think gives you a better holistic knowledge of reliability in general. And so I would say, somebody gets, to me, also somebody in the same company hasn't really challenged the system.
Well, they can. I think that's up to the person. Do you want to, no, yeah, you get a grace period when you move into a new company. And you're brought in as the reliability engineer. So you can start saying, it's basically providing an internal assessment of their program and saying, well, we should do this, this, and this is why. Here's recommendations.
And that's when you get the resistance. And there's the battles of the people that are established there.
But you get heard when you're first there. It's like being a consultant and doing an assessment. At least they hear it. And I learned the hard way. I was doing this one for a company, and I says, "Why am I here? You know all this stuff." And he says, "But they've stopped listening to me.
Yeah,
I'm just kind of plywood here." And I said, "All right, well." How about you just tell me what you want me to put in the report, and we'll go play golf this afternoon.
Exactly.
And he said, no, I can't do that. And he says, I want to see what you come up with. And we ended up agreeing, except I had one thing he didn't have, and he had one thing I didn't have. And they, because it was on my letterhead, who they'd never met, this board of directors had never met me. I hadn't talked to them.
Yeah.
They bought all of those recommendations. They said, yep, we got to do all that. Make it happen. And he'd been telling them for the last 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he says, yeah, they believe you when you're far away and have a beard, kind of thing.
Well, that's what happened. Yeah. At my first company that I consulted with, Advanced Industries, they had a guy there that knew the Halt and House and Halt methods, would find a lot of the problems that he'd been dealing with in the production all the time. And he, but he had a political crosshairs, was in the doghouse for something he had done long ago, and so the chief executive wasn't going to listen to him, and he'd really fallen out of political favor. But they brought me in, and I got it done, and had a tremendous success with it, so much that they closed the door and said, "Please don't talk about this. This is proprietary now." And okay. And so that's the problem too.
Well, there's that.
You get to a different company, you get new information, you get to see the secrets behind the wall, even though you can't tell anybody else in the future.
Well, it's amazing to me is the stuff that from one industry to the next, and whether that's different, moving to a different company, different industry. Like you were describing, or within, like if you're in a big company that has lots of product lines, just move from one product line to the next, or go to the vendors. There's a wealth of differences there. I think to gain the experience, it's where's your opportunity and where do you want to go? The changing jobs, where your W-2 comes from, basically, or 1099. It's two different lifestyles, and there's all kinds of other reasons beyond just being a good reliability engineer. But getting the experience, I think, is what we're coming up with. The career strategy is broaden your scope of what you focus on and touch on and consider and contemplate, all of those good things. And that can be done within the company, and it can be done by switching companies. And so, but the other factor is that it's, like we said just a moment ago, is that it's more and more accepted. I don't think it's universally, but I don't think it's as much of a black mark or indicator if you change jobs frequently.
Yeah, I would say every 6 months I see a new job on the. I'd say no, this, you really didn't have enough time there.
Yeah.
But a year and a half, maybe. And also, in my experience, companies have disappeared. They, close shop.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no,
so,
it's all kinds of reasons, but it's getting the experience from different opportunities, mixing that with where you want to live and your work-life balance, and do you want a boss that's more of a mentor or a taskmaster? Where do you thrive?
Right,
Those are all important factors too. But along the way, you get to see all kinds of cool failure mechanisms.
Oh, man.
So that's the best part.
Right. I mean, from I've seen, high vacuum equipment to electronics to mechanical, you just got to, and you're right. You can do that in the same company. And also your attitude and your curiosity, whether you're going to go dig into and do the investigations in companies, especially for reliability failures, because those are generally somebody's an assignable cause, and it might have been somebody's fault, and those are really difficult to find out. The history. Sometimes people just want to forget those things, but you need to go study them to know how the company's dealt with major reliability issues also.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought of another topic. We'll have to make a note
Okay.
on a financial segment on a radio station. They were talking about the new CEO. When a new CEO comes into a company, they're much more likely to have a recall, because they can still say, well, it's not my fault, man. It was the previous CEO. And they're more, as they stay there longer, they're more and more reluctant to pull the trigger on a recall.
Exactly. They were responding, it was under their watch.
That's right. Yeah. So it's like, all right, so next time I see, somebody just took over as CEO, look for the recalls. Maybe we can learn something. That might be a whole nother topic. But anyway, if you're listening to this and have you changed jobs a handful of times? What benefit did you get? Have you stayed in the same organization? And how did you grow as a reliability engineer and get all these different experiences? Or another option that we didn't talk about? Let us know. Head over to accendoreliability.com/go/SOR. Couple of ways for you to get in touch with us, including a speak pipe widget, which I just checked before the recording, and there wasn't a new voice message there. Or you can get a hold of Kirk or I or the other hosts of the show through LinkedIn or our About pages. So plenty of ways for you to get in touch, and we'd like to hear how's it going for you with your career.
Yeah, now that the workplace has really changed and, a lot of people are working from home, we want to hear about your experience with work and changing jobs, and whether that's been an advantage to you or a setback.
Yep, exactly. All right. Thanks, Kirk. Talk to you again soon.
Okay, talk to you later.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to Speaking of Reliability. We invite you to join the conversation. If you have a question or a topic that you think we should discuss in a future show, please let us know. You can find a comment box below the episode show notes, or just leave a note as part of a review on iTunes.